Welcome to Nina's Lab. You're in a space that is all about signal, not noise. We're here to decode the black boxes of tech, data, and system architecture. Today, we're doing a postmortem, auditing the final deployment log of the Third Age. We're going to analyze the documentation to figure out how a critical system recovered from what should have been a total catastrophic failure. So, let's decode the logic. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to comb through that log. We'll be looking at the core processes, the really clever, unexpected exceptions, and even the legacy protocols that got fired up in the system's most desperate hour. We're going to piece together that whole cascade of events that led, against all odds, to a full recovery. So here's how we're breaking down our audit. We've got 4 phases. First, the initial crisis and the legacy protocols that it triggered. Then, the absolutely brilliant exception handling that happened on the battlefield. Third, the cascading failure deep inside the enemy's core. And finally, the complete system reboot and migration. Okay, let's dive in. All right, let's start with phase 1. This is the moment it all starts to go wrong. The system is in total crisis, its primary defenses are failing, and worse, its own administrators are compromised. This is ground zero for the vulnerability. You know, the first domino to fall was the local administrator in Minas Tirith. Let's call it the Denethor process. It got completely compromised by malicious data coming in from an unsecured port, the Palantir. So instead of prepping the firewalls for an attack everyone knew was coming, the process was just paralyzed. It did nothing, leaving the entire server wide open. And with that admin process totally unresponsive, while the outer perimeter defenses at Osgiliath just crumbled. It was inevitable. This allowed the enemy's lead process, the Witch King, to launch a massive denial of service attack directly against the main server. Okay, on to phase 2. Now we're focusing on the active engagement. And specifically, we're looking at how the system handled a critical, totally unexpected logical condition in the middle of the fight. The enemy's lead process, the Witch King, was running on a very specific, hard-coded conditional statement. It was the seemingly unbreakable piece of logic at the very core of its defensive programming. No man can kill me. Pretty arrogant, right? But this is where battlefield exception handling becomes a game changer. The system found a fatal logic gap. See, the Witch King's code had absolutely no parameters to handle the conditions not a man or hobbit. The combination of the Eowyn and Merry processes exploited this huge exception, causing a fatal error that just terminated the enemy's lead process. It's a perfect example of logical warfare. And while all that was happening, remember that legacy Oathbreaker protocol? Well, it executed its one task flawlessly. It completely cleared the Corsair fleet that was blocking the southern data streams. This opened the way for the deployment of that final critical reinforcement patch, Aragorn's forces, which finally stabilized the system load and secured the whole sector. Now for phase 3. We are going deep into the heart of the enemy's system, to Mordor, to examine the failure cascade that happened right inside their central architecture. You know, for all its power, the enemy's architecture was surprisingly inefficient. At the Tower of Cirith Ungol, we see a classic resource contention deadlock. 2 internal orc processes try to claim the same single, non-shareable resource, the Mithril Coat. They end up fighting over it so hard that the whole local subsystem just crashes, which, conveniently for us, allowed our primary security bypass unit to slip right through. But on our side, our own primary unit, the Ringbearer, was in really bad shape. I mean, the telemetry here is terrifying. Power levels are at just 5%. That's critical. Hardware integrity is failing. And it's operating in an environment with a 95% hostility rating. It was right on the absolute brink of total system failure. And this is the moment of truth. The whole thing comes down to this. The primary user, Frodo, becomes fully corrupted by the Ring malware. He refuses to execute the uninstall command. And then, something nobody could have planned for happens. An external, completely chaotic variable, the Gollum process, intervenes. This forces a physical hard reset. The hardware, the Ring itself, is destroyed, and it causes an immediate, catastrophic crash of the enemy's central server, Sauron. Game over. Which brings us to our final phase, system reboot and migration. The enemy server is a smoking crater. Now the audit turns to cleanup, restoration, and migrating everything to a new architecture. And the restoration sequence was amazingly fast. Look at this. At T+0, the server crashes. Just 1 day later, the new OS, Fourth Age, is installed. The very next day, key UI components like the white tree get a refresh, and by day 3, we have confirmation of full system stability. That is a remarkably fast and successful reboot. But the work wasn't quite done. After the crash, some residual malware, that's the Saruman process, was found lurking on a backup drive, the Shire. But here's the crucial part. The local users, the hobbits, they now had elevated permissions and a ton of experience. They successfully ran their own antivirus protocols and purged the final threat all by themselves. No external support needed. With the system totally stabilized and clean, the final step was initiated. The old Third Age architecture was formally deprecated. It was time to move on. All the key users and essential data caches, we're talking the ring bearers, the high elves, they were all migrated off the legacy system using the Grey Havens protocol. It really was the end of an era. So this whole postmortem shows a system that recovered through this incredible combination of old legacy code, brilliant exception handling, and a forced hard reset by a totally unpredictable variable. And that leaves us with one final, very important thought. With this old architecture gone, what new, unforeseen vulnerabilities will the brand new Fourth Age operating system need to anticipate?